Did you miss me? I missed me, and I'm still a little too lazy to hook up my webcam. Forgive me, but my name is Tommy. Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit. Today, we're gonna kill two birds with one stone. There's a really interesting skill feat in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. A skill feat one could almost build around. Today, Ross Desarn requests the Alpha, an expert in hunting and beast taking. The idea being gathering the strongest creatures around in order to hunt its enemies down. There's a pretty cool, like I said, skill feat for this, but unfortunately it's just so dependent on a GM making sure you have the right tools in setting that we gotta splice it a little bit. We gotta borrow some stuff. I was gonna kind of like play into this, but you've read the thumbnail, you know what this is about. So on top of that, today, Dirk Magic would like us to build a conjurer wizard. We're gonna splice them together because it's real good is why the table is wide open. To be honest with you, I've wanted to talk about this one for a really long time. So sit down, sit back, relax. Let's build that summoner. Remember, if you're liking what you're seeing, like and subscribe and ding that bell. Like I said, we got a boatload of new patrons and we're creeping up on $1,000 a month on Patreon. Definitely gonna do something crazy. I don't know what, but something. When we get there. Today, this episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit was brought to you in part by the man who probably actually has lawful neutral tattooed on his chest, DJ Turner, our Inquisitor of Abadar in Kingmaker, who has been a blast to watch, and thank you so much for your support, my friend. Remember guys, patronage at any tier gets your request to the front of the line, gets you access to a sheet that this is built upon, and hey, could also get you playing Pathfinder 1st or 2nd Edition with us, but I've rambled enough. Let's hit it. So first things first, let's talk about the feat I really wanted to build. A way to get an animal companion without getting an animal companion. It's the only skill feat we're talking about today. Bonded Animal. At feat level 2, if you are expert in nature, you can spend 7 days of downtime trying to bond with a normal animal. So not a companion, familiar, so on and so forth. After that duration, you attempt a DC 20 nature check. If successful, you bond with the animal. The animal is permanently helpful to you, unless you do something egregious to break your bond. A helpful animal is easier to direct. And you can only be bonded with one thing. On paper, that looks really good, and that's almost what we built around, just all the wisdom, all the nature, go, go, go. There are a few reasons why we can't build this by itself. First and foremost, the setting has to support it. There are some pretty scary animals in the bestiary, and we're literally at the outset of Pathfinder right now. There will be scarier. That's assuming you have access to them. If your campaign takes place somewhere where animals don't live, or where the only animals around are like wolves and bears, which might be great in low-level play, but eventually might be real bad and just get killed a bunch, you're investing in something without returns as you level. It also assumes you have 7 days of downtime, which you may not. We're still going to take this feat. This feat is still good, but it needs a little bit of support, and it needs a plan B. That support comes in the form of the wizard. You can get around the terrain thing by just learning where stuff lives and then teleporting to it, so that's hilarious. It's like a scry and die, except you're coming home with a pet. Scry and buy? Well, you're not buying it. I don't know. What rhymes with die, but also involves getting a new best friend? We can figure that out later. Secondly, when we can't find that best friend, we have another option in the form of the Conjurer. Summoning things was always pretty darn powerful. I don't think that's ever going to change. Is it a little weaker here? Yes, but everything looks a little smaller than it used to, and in the meta, this is nuts. It's nuts because the way the spells have changed. Check this out. The bread and butter spell to summon a thing is called Summon Animal. It's one of those very few spells in Pathfinder 2nd Edition that has other spells referencing it a la this functions as this but that. Spell level 1 on the Arcane and Primal list. For 3 actions, out to 30 feet, sustained up to a minute, you conjure an animal to fight for you. You summon a common creature that has the animal trait and whose level is -1. Heightening the spell increases the maximum level of creature you can summon, and we see heightening this bad boy up to 10th gives us a level 15 animal. Not a list of things you can summon, no. Just crack open your bestiary, find a thing, point at a thing, that's the thing I want, here it is. That goes even farther. Name a monster type, friends. We can summon the thing. I'm not going to screen cap them all. Some of them go across different spell lists. Summon Celestial for Divines, Summon Construct or Dragon for Arcanes. Arcane and Primal gets Elemental, the Occult gets Entity or Aberrations. Yeah, summon a Cthulhu. I love that so much. The Occult and the Primal can summon a Fae, the Divine can summon Fiends, Primals can summon Giants, as well as plants or fungi. That's like almost all the typings in the bestiaries, short of like summon elf. I think that's really cool because it leaves the design space just wide open. Literally, this is a spell that gets better as time goes on in Pathfinder 2nd edition, and I think we're all about that. Am I right? Exactly. But I've rambled. Let's talk about the build. And before we do that, I guess, let's talk about a little bit of cognitive dissonance. Again, welcome to 2nd edition. Remember that there is no minimum intelligence score required to cast a spell. You can come in with 8 intelligence as a wizard and cast a 10th level spell. I'm still just freaking out wanting to check a book. Today we will be playing a dwarf. We'll be an ancient blooded dwarf for that call on ancient blood once again, but our 6 hit points from a wizard means we really want that 10. For your background, choose something with wisdom or constitution as an ability boost, then grab the other one as your freebie. Take your free boosts to Dex, Con, Wiz, and Int and get a buff to your Int from being a wizard. Take the standard dwarf traits, and our wizard begins play with a strength of 10, Dex of 14, Con of 16, Int of 14, Wisdom of 16, and Charisma of 8. Yeah, you could come in with a little bigger intelligence if you wanted to by dumping your strength, but you just don't need it. The Conjurer's shtick is entirely to make something do the fighting for them. Are we going to raise our intelligence over time? Certainly, of course. But it's not imperative. Therefore, we can start with that humongous constitution score with our tiny 6 hit points. We can start with a big wisdom score to complement our expert will save. We can have a pretty good dex for our reflex save as well. By 20th level, we'll look at a strength of 12, dex of 20, con of 20, int of 20, wiz of 20, charisma of 10 before apex item. Assign the apex item where you will, friends. It's real good. And you know what else is real good? The wizard. I've wanted to talk about this for a little while. When I was talking to my friends about this was one of the very first things that we were like, oh, yep, that's gonna get rotted. Before we talk about the Conjurer themselves, let's talk about our Arcane thesis, which is like our rogue racket or our druid order, the thing that makes our wizard the wizard that it is. We will choose spell blending, the most meta of all the ways to describe things ever, basically. You theorize that spell slots are a shorthand for underlying energy that powers all spellcasting. And you found a way to tinker with the hierarchy of spell slots, right? So meta. Combining them to fuel more powerful spells. When you make your daily preparations, you can trade 2 spell slots of the same level for a bonus spell slot of up to 2 levels higher. 6s can become 8s, 6s can become 7s, 1s can become 3s, so on and so forth. The kicker here is you can exchange as many spell slots as you have available. Bonus spell slots must be of a level you can normally cast, and each bonus spell slot must be of a different spell level. You can also trade any spell slot for 2 additional cantrips, though you can't get more than 1 spell slot. Now, friends, notice how that doesn't say wizard spells. Doesn't even say arcane spells. This is just trade 2 spells, get 1 spell that is of higher level. Instead of having 3 first level spells and 3 third level spells at 6th level, you could have 1 first level spell and 4 third level spells. We can also pull this from across the various spellcasting archetypes that are giving us other spell slots. It's just straight up gas. And really, nothing says wizard to me like this. Now, for that special arcane school of ours, we will of course choose the Conjurer. You've probably already seen this if I've decided to make that decision. I think I'm just gonna use the Dwarf Conjurer that appears right here in the sample wizard. Yeah, I am calling it now. The Conjurer, of course, gets 1 first level Conjuration spell, think Summon Animal, and we get Augment Summoning as a power, and 1 point in the power pool. We all remember what that one did in Pathfinder 1e, right? Staple for everybody who wanted to be a summoner. Same idea here. For 1 action, targeting one creature you summoned, the target gets a +1 status bonus to all checks, including DCs and AC, for the duration of its summoning, which is more or less what Augment Summoning did. This is a status bonus, so it doesn't stack with a lot of things. I was really hoping to archetype into Bard and then Inspire Courage, but they don't stack. It is what it is. Let's talk those class feats, shall we? At level 1, we will grab a Familiar. Basically for one reason and one reason only. That reason being, we really like refreshing our focus pool. And our Familiar can, once per day with Familiar Focus, use 2 actions with the Concentrate trait to regain 1 focus point up to your usual maximum. You must have a focus pool to select this. This is worded kind of weirdish, but since it's under the Master abilities, yeah, this guy helps you get a focus point back on the fly, which means you can augment summoning right again. Super good. At level 2, of course, we're going to take a dedication. Now, some of the elf and half-elf stuff looked really good in terms of like free dedications and things, but the math didn't quite come out right with the class feats that we are taking in such a way that that would be advantageous. So we'll just take our dedication here. That big ol' wisdom of ours, I'm thinking Druid dedication. I'm thinking Druid dedication for a couple reasons. First and probably foremost, sure, also, you could use the Cleric for this. Heal. Heal is a spell. We can also turn our wizard spells into extra druid spells and have the same amount as a druid. Huh, nice. I think that's really cool. If I ever play Mirrodin again, he's definitely a wizard. Holy poop, that's so good. And since we aren't doing the fighting, there's something in front of us doing the fighting that may sometimes be a little under level for the things that it is fighting. A 10th level spell calls a 15th level creature. You may be fighting things bigger than 15th level, ergo, it might take a lot of damage, ergo, you might need to spend 1 action to command it, make it do the attack as it is a minion, and then heal it for 2. Secondly, what clinched it for me, yes, we could do the same sort of thing on the Cleric list. The Primal spell list has access to a lot of spells that we might use to target people in combat, or that we can use to buff out, while not sacrificing our wizard spells to summon. I'm thinking Haste, I'm thinking Fireball, I'm thinking Slow. Worst case scenario, if you really, really need to, Dinosaur Form yourself. Oopsie. Hasting something that's summoned might not give it a 4th action, but it will give it the normal 3 actions of a thing for the duration of its existence. 3 actions on a dragon in the late game means it's breath weaponing, then striking, or striking, critting, and then having 2 actions to breath weapon again. I love it. Linked Focus is next. When we drain our bonded item to cast a spell of our Arcane school, we also regain a focus point. Let's, real quick, let's pretend I talked about that 5 minutes ago, right? I'm so good at this. Once per day, free action. If you haven't acted yet on your turn, gain the ability to cast 1 spell you prepared today and already cast without spending a spell slot. So as long as we're casting a Conjuration spell, we probably are, because we want to summon all the things, we get a focus point back to then immediately augment it. Basic Druid spell casting is next. Get those heals, throw those heals. Then Advanced School spell at 8th. Since we're a conjurer, we get Dimensional Steps. Icing on the spellbook for us. Maybe don't put icing on your spellbook. There is some flavor text about how a spellbook doesn't necessarily have to look like a book, and if you really want your spellbook to be a cake, then, I mean, that's a very unique flavor, and good for you, but whatever. You do you, boo. We will take Quickened Casting next. Once per day is a free action if your next action is to cast a wizard cantrip or wizard spell that is at least 2 levels lower than the highest wizard spell you can cast, so at the end of the day an 8th level wizard spell. Reduce the number of actions to cast it by 1, a minimum of 1 action. Obviously this is super wonderful. Our spells take 3 actions, and if a little guy can do 2 actions to call him, he then immediately has 2 actions, but first augment him for the 3rd action, or even just haste for less actions, or, hey, you're a spellbook-based caster. You put in there whatever it is you want, my friend. If you want to cast something else, you can cast it a little quicker, and I'm all for that. Expert Druid spellcasting is next. We'll talk about exactly what that gets us at the end. It is a little confusing how they've codified the spellcasting, but I guess once you memorize it, it's as easy as any other table. Then it's Bonded Focus. If you have spent at least 2 focus points since the last time you refocused and your bonded item is in your possession, you recover 2 focus points when you spend 10 minutes doing nerd stuff instead of 1. 4 more augments. This is a game where incremental +1s are pretty few and far between. If there's a bard in squad, you may not necessarily need to augment all the things, but if you don't have one, making sure your guys hit as hard as possible and stay as hard to hit as possible seems super relevant. Primal Breadth, I can never say that word right, I know I'm mispronouncing it, but whatever, helps us get more druid spells for more heals, hastes, fireballs, extra spell slots and all. Followed immediately by Master Druid spellcasting at 18th, caps us out with all of the druid spells that we'll have without using some spell shenanigans. God, I love the wizards so much. Who am I? I've never said that. What even? This grants you 1 spell slot from the druid list up to 8th level, +1 for everything other than the 2 highest. So end of the day, that's 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, 2 fourths, 2 fifths, 2 sixths, a 7th, and an 8th. Remember, spell shenanigans can cause that to move just a lot. Kind of feels like the Arcanist, I'm not gonna lie. I never really played one. GM'd for one for a while in my early days before we really understood how powerful that thing was. She was one of the only characters to die to the big bad, and I'm not really sure why we let that happen. But the whole notion of we are mucking with literally how magic works feels real cool. Not even gonna lie. Man, I just really want to play my Sorcerer Druid and make him a Wizard Druid like I'd wanted to and blast all the things and change all the spells. Whatever, I'm rambling once again. Archwizard's Might at 20th level grants us an additional 10th level spell slot. And 2 8s can make a 10, so that could be all 3 at 20th level. Or 3 15th level dragons. Hooray! Once again, your skill feats are 100% up to you, my friends. We highlighted Bonded Animal. Being real good at Arcana and Nature can get the spells for you, but really, the way your ability scores are split, you can kind of do whatever you want. For our Ancestry feats, it gets a little weird. I'm not gonna lie. There are some things that are just open. Our first and last Ancestry feats today are player's choice. And while that feels like a cop-out, really, we aren't the ones here that we care about. It's the summons. The summons are important. There are some sweet Ancestry feats for the dwarf and for the halfling, but a lot of them are just really, really situational. Rock Runner could be really good for you. If ignoring terrain caused by rubble and uneven ground is important to you or your campaign, Dwarven Lore would get you trained in crafting or religion, or a free thing if you're automatically trained in one of those, plus Dwarven Lore. Oh, hey, surprise guys, we're being adopted by halflings. Same story for them. Is halfling lore good for you in the later game? Hey, cool, great. Halflings are really good at sniffing out people who have been mind bedazzled by enchantments. They're also real good at overcoming emotion effects. If those are important in your game, if you're seeing those a lot, hey, great. But none of them are good enough on their own for me to be like, yes, take this thing. We will be adopted by halflings, of course, from our general feat. So we'll take Lucky Halfling, Mountain Stoutness before Guiding Luck this time. Guiding Luck is still good, but rarely are we making attack rolls. We're probably making perception checks though, ergo, I'll call it good. But the extra HP from Mountain Stoutness, stacking with Toughness taken as our second general feat, probably better. But yeah, Lucky Halfling, Mountain Stoutness, Guiding Luck, the only ones we're going to talk about today. Die Hard is probably not something we super need on this build, and we don't have the actions to mess with a shield, but we will grab armor proficiency from light armor, because why not? It doesn't interfere with our casting any more than our inferior intelligence score does. What even is life? So we'll grab some light armor. Canny Acumen for our fortitude save, then incredible initiative. Now, enough about the boring thing. Let's talk about all of our friends. A summoned creature, of course, has the summon trait, which states that the summoned creature can't summon other creatures, boo. It can't create things of value, I assume, by magic, if it wants to spend its 10 rounds whittling you a chair. I mean, I'm not saying no to whatever demon you called. Or cast spells that require a cost. It has the minion trait, which means that it can only use 2 actions per turn and cannot use reactions. It acts on your turn in combat once per turn when you spend an action to issue it commands. In our case, since we've called it, we are sustaining a spell. But the tricky part here is, if given no commands, By default, minions use no actions except to defend themselves or to escape obvious harm. That can be tricky, but I feel like if you're in a good versus evil campaign, as many of them are, and your gold dragon that you've summoned is fighting a Balor, and that Balor attacks the dragon, maybe, oh maybe, you don't have to command it because it's defending itself by attacking the Balor that will certainly attack it back, or give chase should it try to flee. It gets real spooky in terms of how exactly that could pan out for you. Whatever. Work with your GM. Worst case, remember, the wizard is not super here to be the all-star, it's the thing they call. In any case, moving forward, when you finish casting your summon spell, the summoned creature uses its 2 actions without being commanded. They're banished if they're reduced to 0 or the spell that called them ends. Summoned creatures can be banished by various spells and effects, of course, right? So the idea in combat, in low-level play, as I crack open the old bestiary for something other than looking at Tree Raiser, alright, sure, I'm here for it. Let's say you're a level 1 conjurer who can cast Summon Animal. You actually have a few choices at level 1. A Blood Seeker, formerly known as the Sturge, an Eagle, Flash Beetle, Giant Centipede, Giant Rat, Guard Dog, or Viper. Let's say a Guard Dog. That Guard Dog then immediately has 2 actions with which it can stride and then strike with its Jaws +6 for 1d4 +1. Then next turn, if you would like to augment your doggo, you'd be attacking with Jaws +7, dealing, again, that 1d4 +1 piercing. Damage is not a check. But its AC would go up by 1, all of its saves would go up by 1. Okay, maybe not as good as a flat con buff, but whatever. Now let's take a looky-loo at how this might work at high-level play. I really like Summon Dragon. Maybe I'm a little biased, you can't prove that. Don't look at the name of my channel. Today, it's the Gold Dragon. I'm assuming that this character will be played by good or at least not evil PCs, as they are often. And a Gold Dragon definitely falls into one of those, if it attacks me and is evil, I will probably try to fight the thing. At least that's how I see Lawful Good Super Pretty Dragon. Anyway, augmenting an adult Gold Dragon gives it an armor class of 39, and its Jaws attack will come down at 31 to hit. A 31 to hit means you need a 21 to hit Tree Raiser's flat-footed. Oops! Tree Raiser's reflex save is +40. An adult Gold Dragon's breath weapon is DC 37, which means on a 7 or better, Tree Raiser's got that critical success and is taking nothing. But if Tree Raiser rolls bad, taking half of 15d6 fire damage and getting enfeebled 2, or a -2 on attack rolls, damage rolls, and athletics checks, basically a -2 to the strength things, isn't bad. And since after you get all the summonings done over the course of a few rounds, there seems to be no longer a max on how many minions you can have, so spend 3 actions, command, 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 then a breath weapon 3 times. Somebody in the comments tell me, what is the probability of Tree Raiser rolling a 7 or less if Tree Raiser must roll 3d20s? Because I'm not super sure how to figure that one out. Your friend here is charisma based. But remember that Tree Raiser and oftentimes a lot of other monsters may very well attack with minions. Let's take a look at another creature at the next lowest CR. Same math. I'm kind of tired of the Torlinorm. Let's look at the Moose Boar. Let's go down to Cthulhu Town. Fun times. Hooray! An armor class of 45 means that an augmented adult Gold Dragon must roll a 12 to hit the Moose Boar's flat-footed AC. Not critting unless we roll a 20, but hey, there you go, there it is. With a reflex save of +32 and a breath weapon, which is mislabeled in Archives of Nethys. It's one breath weapon that does 2 things. DC 38 when we augment our dragon means that on a 6 or less, the Moose Boar will fail and take a boatload of fire damage. And remember, as you're leveling the Conjurer, you can basically play that character to run how you want them, play to suit, flavor to taste. And again, the more bestiaries we get, the better we'll become. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. What do you guys think about the Conjurer? I'm sure we've played him into the ground in 1st edition. Are we liking him in 2nd edition? What's your favorite monster to summon in 1st or 2nd edition? Throw it in the comments, let me know. Still got a boatload more 2nd edition content coming your way next week. See you then.